Hey, gang, it's a big one at Memorial Stadium. One of these teams will be bowl game eligible.
You are Locked On Huskers, your daily podcast on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, gang, GP here, Locked On Huskers. Thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. Greatly appreciate you folks who have subscribed. If you have not, I will pause for you to go down there and click the button, subscribe. Greatly appreciate it. Lots to cover in today's episode as we prepare for the Huskers versus the Terps. Before we do all that, super producer Rico, if you would please, let them know about eBay Motors.
Thanks, DP. This episode of Locked On Huskers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Back to you, DP.
Thank you, sir. Greatly appreciate it. And again, I'm rubbing my hands in anticipation of what's a big game in the Big Ten Conference. Listen, one of these two programs, and again, in full disclosure, I'm a DC kid, born and raised. So Maryland football was a big part of my growing up. It was a big part of my fandom. I go all the way back to the days of Bob Avellini, Coach Ross, Coach Claiborne. I go back when it comes to Maryland. And so this is the only game in the season where I don't root for the Terps. This is the only game, so I have to be clear. But I care about both programs. So one of these programs has the opportunity to become bowl eligible after Saturday's game. Now, the real irony of all ironies would be if they tied, and then neither one of them would be, and then I would have to drink heavily or something. I'm not sure what I would do to get through the Sunday, but ideally, one of these teams figures out how to win its sixth game. For Maryland, it's coming in off a 4-game losing streak. The season started well. They played in some big ball games. To their liking, to their thinking, they should probably have 2 losses at this point, not 4. Not satisfied with their own performance last week against Penn State. Gave up 50-plus points to the Nittany Lions, and Mike Locksley in his pressers this week said, "Listen, look, we're not 36 points worse than Penn State. That's just how we played that day. They burned the tape. They don't want to look at it. It doesn't meet their standards." And so, to his thinking and to his decision, there was no point to look at it because that didn't identify them as to who they were. Now, some would say, especially in that DMV area, that, listen, you should probably look at the film because there's some things that Penn State did against you, offensively and defensively, that will show up. It is a statement of who you are. Maryland has some talent. They have a lot of athletes that the Sunday teams look at and kind of identify as, look, these are Sunday players. But 4 consecutive losses in the Big Ten Conference has a way of humbling you, and that's what's happening to the Maryland football team. On the other side for Nebraska, listen, getting on a roll, getting a new quarterback, getting some new players in, working for new coordinators, working for a new head coach, the fan base has gone on the roller coaster ride with this Huskers team, and I would imagine that most are happy with a 5-win season to date, with an opportunity on Saturday to win number 6 and be bowl eligible. But there are those that walk into the building on Saturday not real sure about what Nebraska team to expect. And I think for both of these programs and both of these teams, now listen, the Big Ten Conference would be a better conference if Nebraska is really good. I'm not putting them in the really good conversation, but them being competitive, them being bowl eligible certainly helps the Big Ten Conference. For Maryland, listen, being in a media place where there's focus and attention, listen, the conference is better when Maryland plays well. One of these teams will have the opportunity to leave. Both teams have the opportunity. One of these teams will leave Memorial Stadium with their 6th win of the season, making them bowl eligible, and then they can set sights forward. And for Nebraska, it is a familiar space in that those last 2 games is kind of it's a gauntlet. It's the two, I would say, the 2 most meaningful games on the schedule with Wisconsin and Iowa back-to-back. But you go into those games differently if you handle your business Saturday against Maryland. How will they do that? What are the things that are going to be in play? And we're going to go through players to watch, keys to victory. The race to being bowl game eligible is not really a conversation that Maryland has had to, that Nebraska has had to maneuver in the last couple of years. And being at 5 games, 5 wins, allows them to start to be very specific about mission, task, and duty. Look, this is a big one. And I think Matt Rule and this coaching staff, they've been pretty good about isolating and narrowing the focus for this football team to think less of the program currently and think more of the team and the immediate task and the immediate mission, which is doing your job at a high enough level with great competency and effectiveness to beat Maryland. And we know what those things are. So for Maryland offensively, look, they like to throw the ball. I would imagine that they're going to spread the Huskers out and try to get things done. They are not satisfied with the way they've been running the ball. So Hemby at running back is a big deal for Nebraska. If you can keep his numbers down, it forces Taulia Tagovailoa to throw the ball around, which I don't think they mind. Then it becomes the chess match between what Maryland wants to do offensively and what Tony White wants to take away defensively. That is a huge net to cast because there are some talented players on the Maryland side of the ball offensively. And we will break that down. We will also get into Nebraska's offense versus Maryland's defense. And then we'll talk special teams and coaches because I can tell you, Mike Locksley and Matt Rule both understand the importance and value in going 1-0 this week. It changes their place. It changes their location. It changes their elevation for both of these teams and then for both of these programs. There's no misunderstanding. This game is a big game and a big opportunity. We'll go to the players. We'll talk about those players when we come back to Locked On Huskers. Hey, gang, DP here and Locked On Huskers. And again, if you have not, please, you can follow on social media and you can put comments down in the comment section. Greatly appreciate you hanging out each and every day here on Locked On Huskers. Rico, if you would, kind sir, let them know about Jase Medical.
Thanks, DP. This episode of Locked On Huskers is brought to you by Jase Medical. We spend a lot of time talking together, you and I. We get fired up together on wins and losses, who starts and who sits. I'm thankful for that connection we have. And today, I want our chat to be a little more personal. I just learned that you can get a 1-year supply on ED medications. You realize what that means? Bring on extended travel, bring on the next natural disaster or supply chain issue. You are covered, my friend. You don't have to worry about whether or not you can refill your generics for Cialis, Viagra, or Avatio prescription. And this is possible because of our friends at Jase Medical. Go online right now at jasemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jase. I am thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with a year's supply. I also ordered an antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone. If you or someone you love would get some peace of mind by having a year's supply of any daily med, go to jasemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use the promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase.
Thanks, Rico. Greatly appreciate it. And again, through all of what we're talking about, there are players who really have impact. Now, let's set the table. Nebraska being 5-4 and 3-3 in the Big Ten is not the same as Maryland being 5-4 and 2-4 in the Big Ten. Maryland's over with some heavy hitters. Nebraska, if they win and go 6-4 and then 4-3 in the Big Ten, puts them in a position to have exceptional vision, short-term and long-term, in the Big Ten West. Listen, it's a big deal for them to put themselves by doing something that they feel like they are worthy of doing. And in the all-time series, Nebraska's never lost to Maryland. Like, as a matter of fact, the last time, even in a down year, the last time Nebraska and Maryland faced each other, Nebraska put up 54 points. Now, again, it's a 2-game Nebraska winning streak, and I can't fathom a way for Nebraska to put up 54 points. So we'll look at this thing and listen. A couple of things. I know folks are going to talk about it. Having to either be in the stadium, at the Memorial Stadium, or downloading and subscribing to Peacock. It's basic things. And then a weird thing happened this week. Pay attention to the tickets. That tickets are going as low as $9. So you can pay the $6 and watch Peacock for a month, or you can pay $9 and be at Memorial Stadium and leave Peacock alone. Or, of course, you can listen to the Huskers call. But a couple of things in that Maryland being at Memorial Stadium, it's a big deal for them and a big opportunity. Now, I want to talk offensively about Maryland because, again, Deshaun Jones, Caden Prather, Ty Felton, they've got 3 receivers who get to the end zone often, all of them with at least 4 touchdowns, all of them with over 30 catches for the season. They do an exceptional job of throwing the ball around. As a matter of fact, when you talk about Maryland, their passing offense is second in the Big Ten Conference. So when you pay it and each of these receivers have a different kind of skill set and a place in this offense, but here's what it allows. Because all 3 of those receivers can stretch vertical, that's going to take people out of the box. And the teams that have had success against Taulia Tagovailoa defending him, and success is relative when it comes to Tagovailoa, that he has 21 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, completing 65% of his passes for just under 2,500 yards. He's having success throwing the ball around. He also has success in putting his feet in the ground and getting 5, 6, 7, 8 yards and moving the chains for the Terps. It's a big deal. It is a big deal. And Roman Hemby at running back is not just the only story, because Colby McDonald also, and they will utilize them both. But Hemby's actually really effective out of the backfield, which will hold some of the things that Tony White wants to do defensively, because you don't want your linebackers out full in space. You hope that they can be playmakers and get them to the ground. But when it's Maryland's offense versus Nebraska defense, it's playmakers versus playmakers. And the team that has the most success in either breaking tackles or making tackles will have a higher level of success in the day. This is a talented team. Colby McDonald averages 7 yards a carry on the ground. Now he's rushed for 260 yards. This is a big play back. And then Antoine Littleton just at under 4, but all of them have scored touchdowns. 4 for Hemby, 2 for McDonald, 2 for Littleton. And that does not exclude Tagovailoa in the Maryland run game, because what he does in breaking down, again, they'll stretch vertically and get more defenders out of the box, and they'll flare running backs out of the backfield. They will go 2, 3, and sometimes 4 receivers out there. Sometimes they will go 2, 3 tight ends, depending on down and distance in the situation. But Maryland will create personnel mismatches, and then try to take advantage of it. And the rotation of Maryland players, and listen, they've got Isaac Gifford in their sights about what he does well and the things that he will struggle with. But this is a rush offense for Maryland that has not had the level of success that Michael Locksley wanted for his Terps team. They're having the passing success, and the passing success is so good that this offense is third in total offense and fourth in total offense in the Big Ten Conference. Nebraska, we know that the running the ball is how Nebraska is going to have success. But pay attention to this thing, that in watching Penn State versus Maryland a week ago, there were several breakdowns in the middle of Penn State's defense, in the middle of Maryland's defense, where Penn State's quarterback broke things down and then busted them up for big plays up the middle. There is a question on the discipline of Maryland's defense and whether they're going to properly run fit, whether they're going to stay true to their passing game responsibilities, and then their ability to get Nebraska playmakers down on the field. Now, again, Nebraska doesn't have what we would consider Big Ten elite playmakers in that they will catch a short route and take it to the house. We haven't seen much of that. So the expectation for it is pretty minimal. But Maryland has its own issues defensively. They have some real issues. One, getting playmakers to the ground. And then two, staying true to the fight. Maryland defensively, they played really well in most of their games this season. They played really well for a half. Sometimes in the games in which they won, the 5 games they won, they played really good for 3 quarters. Playing a complete game is issue and task for Maryland. Against Penn State, they didn't. I mean, they felt like, first of all, it was a weird thing because they were down at half, but Tango Vailoa completed his first 17 passes against Penn State. He was 17 for 17. And they still got blown out of the building. And it was still competitive at an early phase, and then it just kind of took off, and Maryland got in quicksand, and the harder they fought, the deeper they got. But listen, Maryland has talent offensively. Defensively, we're going to talk about, they gave up 50-plus points. They gave up 51 against Penn State. And I don't think anybody's going to confuse Penn State's offense with Nebraska's, but that number speaks volumes and lets you know that there is opportunity. We'll go to break. We'll come back. We'll talk about that defense and then some players for Nebraska offensively that have to have a huge day for the Huskers to have success. Hey, gang, DP here. And again, you should be able to follow. You should be able to comment. You should be able to get your information in. Feel free to follow me on the X and on social media. All of this content will be shared. You can subscribe. As a matter of fact, you should subscribe just to get the notification that a new episode of Locked On Huskers is up and there for you. The numbers don't, as we say, you can get mad at the numbers, but the numbers are what they are. That Maryland defensively, pretty good numbers when you talk about rushing defense. The previous 3 quarterbacks against Maryland's defense had success running the ball. Now, here's the thing about playing Maryland. When Maryland turns you over, they win games. When Maryland does not turn you over, when you do not give them the ball, when you do not get childish penalties, you can have all the success you want against Maryland defensively. They're stout and they're deep. They've got some great defenders. Bo Braid is a Sunday level tackler. They've got 4 guys on defense, and they've got all 5 of the first 5 guys in their defensive line rotation all provide pressure on the quarterback. So Nebraska's going to be on its P's and Q's. The offensive line's got to have another day. And here's the thing. For both of these teams, they have the same keys to success. And listening to Mike Locksley in his presser this week, he spoke, and you could have just put Matt Rule's face on it and copied everything that was said. that Maryland and Nebraska both have to take care of themselves. They have to compete against themselves. That the greatest opponent on the field for both of these teams, it's themselves. Loxley preaches that about Maryland, that, listen, it's Terps versus Terps. Matt Rule and this coaching staff has said, listen, the greatest competition we have is with ourselves at Nebraska. Not turning the ball over, not putting penalties in play, especially in crucial situations. Take care of the ball and then know your job. Handle your responsibility. So much so that Maryland is talking about the 60-degree weather day and how much of a big wind that is. Now, we don't know what the wind is. We know what it's said to be, but playing in a windy Memorial Stadium is different than playing in not a windy Memorial Stadium. But Maryland has its keys ready. I fully expect that through their conversations and what they've said on social media, that, listen, they're going to be who they are. They just need to be a better version. They're going to throw the ball around. They're going to pass the ball around. They demand that their run game is more effective. Maryland will probably look. I can't imagine a world where Nebraska's throwing the ball around as much as Maryland is, unless Maryland gets up big early. And if Maryland gets up big early, I'm not sure that's a world we want to work in, where Harbaugh is going to be asked to throw the ball more times than Talia Tagovailoa. Both teams up front, offensively and defensively, have to have a big day. It has to be sound and stout for Nebraska up front offensively. The bigs for Nebraska have to have a day. They have to have a day. And defensively, Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmacher have to be a factor, getting pressure on Tagovailoa without the extra defender and pressure. Listen, it'll be a chess game defensively for both teams. They will show you one thing, do something else. Both of them will walk up into coverage and then back out of it at the last minute, hoping to confuse and concern the quarterbacks. I don't want to say it as simply as that, but I can tell you, special teams will have an impact on the day. And then look at the quarterbacks. At the end of day, probably the quarterback that turns the ball over fewer times will have the most success. And if that's the case, that quarterback will lead their team to victory. That's my key. Turnovers, who's in the plus side, who's on the negative side. I think that'll play a big part in this game. It's been a pleasure to spend the episode with you on Locked On Huskers. Thank you for what you do and for watching it. Your Huskers, each and every single day. We close with the 3 words that we love so much. Go Big